is Bitcoin ready to be adopted as legal tender? Now we're in the next phase of governments adopting Bitcoin. How are the people of El Salvador going to adopt a currency where it costs $3 to $5 per transaction and very capital constrained? That caused a certain panic.
And so what are the barriers for the Bitcoin Lightning Network propagating at scale?
Lightning is hard. It's not for the faint of heart. Archie. I want to take you back to 2021 at the Bitcoin Miami conference. And I think, Bitcoin price was going up, and Jack Mallers got on stage and gave his, tearful announcement that El Salvador was going to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. And I think while it was just a complete change for Bitcoin, now we're in the next phase of, governments adopting Bitcoin. And for the Bitcoin builders, the ones that are, thinking about how are the people of El Salvador going to adopt a currency where it costs $3 to $5 per transaction and very capital constrained. I think that caused a certain panic. Is Bitcoin ready to be adopted as legal tender, especially for, a moment as important as El Salvador adopting it? And that caused the launch of PlebNet, really, which was basically individuals running Lightning nodes. And they needed a way to communicate and connect. And that was right when we were launching Amboss, which as a Lightning Network Explorer. So
what does that mean? Tell us about your company, what it does, and what is a Lightning Network Explorer? How does?
Well, basically, Lightning is a social phenomenon. It takes two people to create a channel on the Lightning Network where Bitcoin can be exchanged back and forth. What's essentially a joint account. But it takes two people, and they have to be able to find each other and know how to connect. So what a Lightning Network Explorer is essentially a directory of all of the Lightning nodes that are advertising themselves. You're listed in the phone book, and that's what it is at the basic level.
So a Lightning channel is a connection between two Lightning nodes. It's kind of the way that it's been explained to me that made sense to me is kind of like when you've got a tab at the bar, and the tab is settled at the end of the night, for example. So there needs to be, I guess, the bar is assuming that you're good for a certain amount of credit. But with Lightning, there has to be an amount of Bitcoin liquidity injected into the channel. Is that right? Or have I got that bit wrong?
So where the bar tab analogy kind of falls apart is you basically have to prepay.
Yeah.
So you drop $100 bill on the bar tab, and it's prepaid. Now you can deduct from that throughout the night, and then you settle up.
You settle the net balance. So
exactly.
If you've got two parties, whoever it is transacting in there, one might pay the other person then transacts again. So whatever the net balance is of the totality of those transactions, that's what gets settled up.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. And the liquidity inside the channel, is there a minimum amount that needs to be in the channel? Is there a minimum amount to make it functional? Or say if there's $100 worth of Bitcoin, I don't know how to price that into sats, right? But if there's $100 worth of Bitcoin, does that cap the total value of any single transaction at $100?
Yeah, this is where it gets into technicals. So technically the minimum is like 21,000 sats. Okay. At that point, it's just not very useful. You can't put a big transaction through a tiny channel like that. Sometimes I think about it in terms of like a truck. If you're driving a big, tall truck, you have to watch out for low overpasses, and you have to find alternate routes. So same thing happens for, Bitcoin payments over Lightning. You need a big enough channel that has, that clearance to be able to settle a payment. So that's basically what's going on. So if you put down a lot of money into a Lightning channel, The next part is you don't have to trust the other person. You always have your bags packed. And so, I mean, the finance guys would say no counterparty risk. So it's basically setting it up. And then from there, you can just transact back and forth. It's not just me paying the bartender. Maybe I have something to sell the bartender, or bartender wants to buy some groceries and I'm connected to the grocery store. So he could pay through me, and it could go both ways. So the value just sloshes back and forth and never touches the Bitcoin blockchain, which means that you don't have to pay for all the proof of work, all the mining that's involved in coordinating the entire globe around a single ledger, because a Lightning transaction happens outside of the blockchain. It's just an agreement between two people governed by digital signatures.
I'm just thinking, you mentioned the clearance as the analogy, but for a transaction, the clearance limit, how is that enforced on a Bitcoin channel? So now the analogy of $100 or 121, or let's say it's 100 million sats, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that place a limit on? The total value of transactions that can total net value of transactions, or is it the maximum value of a single transaction as a result of the liquidity in the channel? I'm just wondering, like, what does that place a limit on exactly? What can be conducted through that channel?
Yeah. So
if it's 100 million sats, does that mean I can pass a transaction through that's 100 million sats or not? Or is that conditional?
Yeah, basically it can. In certain cases, that's the max payment size that you could do, making things a bit simpler. But really, the way it functions is like a joint account. So I'm going to put in $100, and now we have a joint account together. And what is the payout from that joint account? So neither of us can get more than $100. It's always going to be less than that. So the channel, over the life of it, we could have millions of transactions that go back and forth. Mm-hmm. All of them need to be under $100. But at the end of the day, it's just how are we going to split up the money when we decide to close out this joint account?
Okay, and we close out the joint account based on the net value of the transactions we've both conducted.
Yeah.
Okay, so, gotcha.
So like what Bitcoin sees is just the net settlement between two parties after potentially years.
Mm-hmm. And so what are the barriers for the Bitcoin Lightning Network propagating at scale? Because scale is one of the things that people mention about Bitcoin Lightning. And is that simply a case of, more merchants accepting it, more people opening up channels? Is there an issue with people willing to put up liquidity in these channels? Like what are the barriers to that?
One is just complexity. Like Lightning is hard. If some of the stuff that we're doing is like trying to route payments throughout a network. So we're basically doing like traffic analysis for an entire financial transportation layer. So basically, like how are you going to route a payment, and like what's the most efficient path? It's almost like Waze, like the navigation app, like that. That's basically our function, but it's hard. Like regular people don't know where to build a road. They don't even know how to get to from point A to point B. They need support to do that. And so that's kind of left us in the position to like help support this, give people the math and the algorithms to like make use of this.
I've heard people refer to like balancing Lightning channels.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So like if I've got a certain amount of value and it's split up between many joint accounts, many different channels. Well, I've got $5 here, $10 here, $100 here. Well, like I could make a $100 payment in one direction, but like, how do I make use of the value that's in my other channels? And the rebalancing is basically you can make a circular payment. So I can pay out with one channel and it will circle back into another channel of mine. And that way I can make larger payments, or I might be able to capture more activity that is actually routing through my node, paying me fees each time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a management function, but it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, is that a manual thing, or can it be managed algorithmically, or with some kind of AI agentic function? How can that be made easier and simpler from an infrastructure point of view?
Yeah. Whatever you add to this, to do a rebalance, if you're going to like script it or use some software, you're giving it sending power for your Bitcoin.
Oh, I see.
So we've decided not to do that because we really like self-custody. So we'll offer software that doesn't have that function. I don't want to be able to send your Bitcoin because it makes me a custodian. But what I can do is you give me certain permissions that allow me to create new connections or close existing ones. And that gives me the ability to provide a service to you without being a custodian. And so that's where we've been focused. So instead of just having, 3 channels with funds split, I'll just close one of them and, well, let's reopen a bigger one in a more important place. And it's like the entire transportation system for finance just kind of got re-architected to be more efficient.
And so I guess I was asking about barriers to scale.
Yeah.
I guess we've just touched upon the complexity of just a fairly fundamental part of the Lightning Network, right? Yeah. But okay, what about from the merchant side of things? The experience as a consumer paying a merchant, like I said, at times, when it works, it just feels like magic. It's just like, I can't believe it. It's so easy. And oftentimes it's as simple as tapping my phone to pay or a card to pay, and it just feels that good. And I'm just like, what is it on the back end that's stopping us? I guess we touched on one thing, which is, channel management is not simple. Is there a way of making it simpler or easier or more automated that perhaps might open up the possibility for more people to manage their own channel or open up channels?
I think a lot of people just don't understand what is the problem. Like what's Lightning trying to solve? But if you actually run a business, then you'll be familiar with the payment processing costs. Like you're losing, 3 to 4% of every transaction. And then you might be the victim of a chargeback where, you thought you had money, but now the bank is reversing the transaction because someone said, well, I didn't pay for that. And the money gets taken away from you.
Just to give people a little bit of context, 3 to 4%, even 3%, it might sound like a little bit of money, but the average business is lucky to operate on, net profit margins of 8 to 10%, like really lucky to get those margins and be profitable. So for every $1 that's actually coming in gross, if they're keeping 8 to 10 cents of that up for an average business, they're doing okay, right? And imagine of that $1, you're giving away 3 cents of that to your payment processor just for allowing you to accept payments. Like the idea of Lightning, which could be like a fraction of that, right? And suddenly you've got a massive 30 to 40% boost to your net profit margin. That's an incredible opportunity. So sorry, I interrupted you. I just wanted to add that context to the opportunity for a merchant. It might sound like a small amount, 3% of total revenue, but as a percentage of the net profit margin, that's a huge amount.
Yeah. We want businesses to be successful. We want them to stop, being stuck in the fiat rat race. And, the technology that we have with Lightning allows us to pay faster, do final settlement for a fraction of the cost of what they've all been used to, and make it more private for the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
So with those things, the difficulty comes in is that Lightning does not use debt or credit. And so, while someone may want to pay you, if you're not using credit or debt, that means the infrastructure has to be in place. The money has to be ready to be, signed over to you.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the money is not already in Lightning. So for a merchant that wants to receive payments, well, they need someone to basically build a financial road to them, open a Lightning channel, and put up the money first. And that's a hard problem because they have to get discovered as a business and communicate to the rest of the Bitcoin network. Hey, I need liquidity in order to receive a payment.